I never thought an elevator breakdown could feel like both a curse and a revelation. But when the metal box shuddered, trapping me between floors, and his arms slipped around me, steady and warm, I realized I wasn't afraid of the dark. I was afraid of how much I wanted him. It's a ridiculous beginning, isn't it? Imagine this. A man still nursing the wreckage of a breakup, still trying to ignore the lingering scent of his ex on the street we both call home, suddenly finding himself pressed against the chest of the one person he should have stayed far away from, his ex's older brother. That's me. And this is the story of how everything I thought I knew about love unraveled. The first time I saw Ethan Walker, I hated him on instinct. Maybe it was because of how effortlessly he carried himself, like he owned every room he entered. Or maybe it was the way his eyes lingered a little too long, as if he could see the cracks beneath my skin. Either way, I wasn't ready for him. Not then. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. After all, what are the chances that my ex-boyfriend would move out, and I'd still be stuck living across the hall from his older brother? Every morning, every evening, I'd catch glimpses of Ethan, carrying groceries, leaving for work in his pressed shirts, or leaning casually against the railing of the apartment complex, sipping coffee like he had all the time in the world. And every time I told myself not to notice, not to care, not to let the shape of his jawline or the depth of his laugh make me curious. Because he wasn't just anyone. He was off limits. It wasn't until that night, the night the elevator betrayed me, that the walls I'd built began to crumble. The air had been thick with silence as the elevator jerked and groaned, the lights flickering before plunging us into a suffocating darkness. My breath came too fast, too shallow, as panic clawed its way up my throat. Memories of being trapped once as a kid, suffocating, screaming, unheard, came roaring back. My hands trembled, my chest heaved. And then, through the chaos, there was Ethan's voice. Low, steady, anchoring. Hey, breathe. Just breathe with me. I didn't want to lean into him. I didn't want to admit that his touch was the only thing keeping me tethered. But when his arms slipped around me, strong and grounding, something inside me broke open. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. Too safe. Because the moment I looked up at him, the dim emergency light casting shadows across his face, my heart betrayed me. It wasn't supposed to be him. The days that followed were a blur of confusion. I tried to convince myself it had been nothing. Just adrenaline, panic, the cruel tricks of a body desperate for comfort. But Ethan didn't let me retreat into denial so easily. Do you want to talk about it? He asked, knocking gently on my door one night, his voice hesitant but insistent. I should have said no. I should have closed the door, locked it, and thrown away the key. But instead, I let him in. We sat on opposite sides of my couch, silence stretching like a tightrope between us. He didn't push. He didn't pry. He just waited, patient in a way that made my chest ache. Finally, the words spilled out. The panic, the elevator, the way my chest had tightened like it was caving in. When I finished, I expected pity. What I got was understanding. You're not weak, he said quietly, his gaze never leaving mine. You just survived something your body remembers too well. That's not weakness. That's strength. And damn him, because those words lodged themselves in me like a splinter I couldn't pull out. The more time I spent with him, the harder it became to pretend. Pretend that my pulse didn't stutter when his hand brushed mine. Pretend that the sound of his laughter didn't make the apartment feel less empty. Pretend that I didn't want to know every version of him, the guarded one, the tired one, the one who stayed up too late reading on his balcony. But every moment of closeness was shadowed by guilt. Because how do you explain falling for the brother of the man who broke you? How do you look in the mirror and not see betrayal staring back? I told myself it was temporary, that I could pull back before it was too late. But then came the night of the storm. The power had gone out, rain hammering against the windows, the world outside swallowed in darkness. I had been standing on my balcony, hugging myself against the cold, when Ethan appeared across the way. His hair was damp, his t-shirt clinging to his chest, and for a second we just stared at each other through the rain. Then he crossed the space between us, barefoot, reckless, like the storm itself had dared him to move. He stepped into my apartment without asking, water dripping onto the hardwood floor, and said only one thing: "I can't keep pretending either." And before I could protest, his lips were on mine. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tentative. It was fire and rain and years of things unsaid, crashing into me all at once. My body betrayed me again, surging toward him, hands fisting in his shirt, dragging him closer. The kiss was messy, desperate, wrong in 1,000 ways, and yet, it felt like the only truth I had left. When we finally broke apart, breathless, his forehead resting against mine, he whispered, "Tell me you don't feel it too, and I'll stop." I should have said it, should have lied, should have shoved him out into the storm and locked the door. But I couldn't. Because for the first time in so long, my heart wasn't numb. It was alive. And that terrified me more than anything. The storm outside didn't stop, but inside, the silence was louder than thunder. His forehead still pressed against mine, our breaths tangled, hot and uneven, the taste of him still clinging to my lips. I should have pushed him away. I should have said no, but my body refused to move, my chest rising and falling like it was desperate for more. "Ethan," my voice cracked, betraying me. His eyes searched mine, dark, intent, like he was memorizing every flicker of hesitation. "Say it and I'll stop. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk out that door." But the words wouldn't come. My lips parted, yet nothing emerged but a shaky breath. Because it wasn't true. I did want this. I wanted him. God. I wanted him in ways that scared me, in ways I couldn't put into words. And maybe he saw that. Maybe he knew before I did. Because instead of leaving, he cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek like I was something fragile, something worth holding carefully. The gentleness of it nearly undid me. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered finally, choking on the weight of it. "You're my brother's ex," he finished for me, his tone raw. "Yeah, I know. Believe me, I've tried to tell myself 100 reasons why this is wrong. But every time I see you, every time I hear you laugh, every time I watch you fight through the pain you don't think anyone sees, I can't pretend anymore." I blinked hard, my throat thick. "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what it means to want you," he cut in. His voice was low, steady, but it trembled at the edges. "To care about you more than I ever thought I could care about anyone? Don't tell me I don't know." I shook my head, but tears burned the back of my eyes, because I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But how do you love someone without ripping open all the scars left behind? We didn't speak of it again for days. After that kiss, after that night, we both retreated. Ethan went back to his apartment, and I stood in the middle of mine for hours, staring at the door he'd closed behind him. The storm passed. The power came back. The city returned to its rhythm. And yet, everything between us had shifted, like the floorboards had tilted, and I was forever stumbling to find my balance. I avoided him at first, slipped out early for work, took the stairs instead of the elevator, pretended not to notice when I heard his footsteps in the hallway. But avoidance is a fragile shield. One accidental glance, one too long stare across the mailboxes, one moment of silence that stretched too taut, and suddenly it was there again. That pull, that gravity neither of us could escape. It was at the grocery store that everything cracked. I hadn't even realized he was there until I reached for the last carton of milk at the same time he did. Our hands brushed and I froze. His fingers were warm, steady, while mine trembled like they were betraying me. "You can have it?" I muttered quickly, dropping my hand as if the carton had burned me. But he didn't take it. He didn't move. Instead, he whispered, "Stop running from me." The words slammed into me harder than any storm. I looked up, heart pounding, and his eyes, God, those eyes, were locked on mine like he wasn't afraid of anything. Not judgment, not history, not even me. "I'm not," I started, but my voice betrayed the lie. "Yes, you are," he said softer now, like he was speaking to the part of me I kept hidden. "And I get it. You've been hurt. You've been left behind. But I'm not him. I'm not going to break you and walk away." The air between us tightened. People passed around us, the ordinary rhythm of shoppers with carts and lists, but it felt like the world had narrowed to just us. "Ethan," I whispered, my throat aching. "You feel it too," he said. "Don't deny it. You feel it every time you look at me. Every time I'm near." My chest heaved. I wanted to scream that he was wrong, that I didn't feel anything, that I was fine. But fine doesn't make your pulse race. Fine doesn't make your skin burn where his hand had grazed yours. Fine doesn't make you want to close the distance and damn the consequences. And in that moment, I couldn't lie anymore. Started small. Coffee shared in silence. Passing each other in the hallway and not pretending it didn't matter. Sitting side by side on my balcony. Saying nothing. Letting the city breathe around us. Every little thing was dangerous, every glance a risk. But the more we let it happen, the harder it became to deny. One night, he came over with a bottle of bourbon. "For company," he said with a crooked grin. We ended up on the couch, legs stretched out, the bottle half empty between us. We talked about everything and nothing. His job at the architectural firm, my endless deadlines, the music that got us through long nights. At some point, the laughter faded into quiet, and I realized his hand was resting close to mine on the cushion. Too close. "Do you ever think about it?" I asked suddenly, the bourbon loosening my tongue. He glanced at me. "About what?" "About what people would say." He didn't hesitate. "All the time. And it doesn't scare you?" He leaned closer, his voice low. "Only if it scares you." The air thickened, charged. His face was so close I could see the flecks of gold in his irises, the faint scar at the edge of his lip. And I realized then I didn't care. Not about whispers, not about judgment, not about the shadows of the past. Because this him felt more real than anything had in years. I kissed him first this time. But if the universe has a cruel sense of humor, it also has a way of reminding you nothing comes easy. Because the very next morning, my ex came back. His name was Ryan, and if seeing him again felt like a punch to the gut, hearing his voice felt like a blade twisting in the wound. "Didn't expect to see you still here," he said casually, standing in the hallway like he owned it. He looked the same, messy brown hair, sharp smile, the kind of confidence that had once charmed me and later destroyed me. "Yeah, well," I muttered, clutching the strap of my bag. "Not everyone runs away when things get hard." His smirk faltered for half a second, then returned. "Still bitter, huh?" He laughed, like it was all a game, like my heart hadn't been collateral damage in whatever phase he'd been chasing. But the worst part wasn't seeing him. The worst part was when Ethan stepped out of his apartment behind him. Ryan turned, his grin widening. "Ethan, man, it's been forever." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Ryan." My chest clenched, because suddenly the air was heavy, suffocating, filled with a truth none of us dared say out loud. Ryan didn't know. He didn't know about the storm, about the kiss, about the bourbon-soaked confessions in the dark. He didn't know how close his brother and I had drifted, how much I had begun to lean on Ethan in ways I never had with him. And standing there, caught between the two of them, I felt the ground threaten to crumble. Ethan's eyes flicked to mine, a silent question, a silent promise. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Secrets don't stay secrets forever. And when this one came out, it could break us all. The hallway was too small for the three of us. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears, and every second stretched like it was daring me to breathe. Ryan leaned casually against the wall, unaware, or maybe pretending to be unaware, of the tension suffocating the air. He smirked at Ethan, then at me, and that smirk alone made me want to slam the door in his face. "So," Ryan drawled, "you two neighbors must have been keeping each other company, huh? Cute." My jaw tightened. I glanced at Ethan, whose expression had gone stone-hard, though his eyes flickered with something Ryan couldn't see: fear? Defiance? A silent plea for me not to react. "Yeah," I said flatly. "Neighbors tend to see each other." Ryan chuckled. "Guess so. Good to know you've moved on from sulking. Last time I saw you, you looked like the world had ended." The cruelty of it cut deep, even though I'd heard it all before. The difference now was Ethan standing just a few feet away, his fists clenched at his sides like he was holding himself back. Ryan's grin widened, like he enjoyed twisting the knife. "Anyway, I'm back in town for a while. Don't worry, I won't be knocking on your door in the middle of the night." He winked, careless, before turning his attention back to his brother. "Catch you later, Ethan." And just like that, he was gone, leaving the silence behind like a bruise. I didn't realize I was shaking until Ethan stepped closer. "Hey," he murmured, "don't let him get to you." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "He always gets to me." Ethan hesitated, then reached out, brushing his fingers against mine. Quick, subtle, hidden. "Not anymore," he said. "Not if I can help it." But Ryan's return wasn't just a ghost haunting me. It was a storm gathering on the horizon, threatening everything Ethan and I had barely begun to build. The next week felt like living under glass, every movement fragile, every glance dangerous. Ryan knocked on Ethan's door a few times, catching up like nothing had changed, like he hadn't left behind wreckage when he'd walked away from me. Sometimes, I could hear their voices through the thin walls, brotherly banter, casual laughter, and it twisted something ugly inside me. I avoided Ryan as much as possible, but he seemed to have radar for my discomfort. Every time we passed in the hallway, his smirk lingered a little too long, his gaze heavy with unspoken questions. And all the while, Ethan and I danced on the edge of something that could ruin us both. We still found each other. Quiet nights on my balcony, stolen moments when no one was watching. But now there was a weight between us, the unspoken truth that his brother's shadow loomed too close. One night, after Ryan had left Ethan's place, I found myself pacing my apartment, my chest tight with fear. When the knock came at my door, I already knew who it was. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, shoulders tense, eyes dark. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I nodded, stepping aside. We didn't sit. We didn't speak at first. He just stood there, running a hand through his hair, like he was unraveling. "He asked about you," Ethan said finally, his voice low. My stomach dropped. "What did you say?" "That you were fine. That you were moving on." He paused, then looked at me, and the weight of his gaze nearly broke me. I didn't tell him about us. Relief and dread collided in my chest. "Good." But Ethan shook his head. "Is it? Because every time I talk to him, I feel like I'm lying. And I hate lying." I swallowed hard. "What choice do we have?" He stepped closer, his voice raw. "We could tell him. We could stop hiding." My breath caught. The very idea made my skin prickle with fear. Ethan, do you have any idea what that would do? To him? To us? Do you? His tone sharpened, desperate. Because right now, it feels like we're waiting for the truth to blow everything up anyway. At least if we told him ourselves. I shook my head, cutting him off. No, you don't understand. Ryan doesn't forgive. He doesn't let go. If he finds out, he'll destroy this. He'll destroy you. His jaw tightened. Let him try. Something in his voice made my heart ache. Brave, stubborn, protective, and so damn reckless. I closed the distance, my hand pressing against his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath. Please, not yet. For a long moment, he just looked at me, his breath rough, his eyes searching. Then, finally, he nodded. Not yet, he agreed softly. But the way his hand caught mine, holding it tight, told me that not yet didn't mean never. The cracks came sooner than I expected. It was a Saturday afternoon when Ryan cornered me in the parking lot. I had been hauling grocery bags from my car when his voice cut through the air, smooth and mocking. Still hanging around, huh? I froze, clutching the bags tighter. What do you want, Ryan? He shrugged, sauntering closer. Just curious. You and Ethan seem close these days. My heart stuttered. We're neighbors. His smile was sharp. Neighbors don't look at each other like that. The blood drained from my face. You don't know what you're talking about. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. Don't I? You think I don't see it? The way you look at him? The way he looks at you. Panic surged through me. You're imagining things. But his grin told me he wasn't fooled. If you think you can worm your way through my family after everything that happened between us, you're more pathetic than I thought. The words hit harder than they should have, and I bit down on the sting in my chest. Go to hell, Ryan. I pushed past him, the weight of the groceries nearly slipping from my grip, but his parting shot followed me, cutting deep. You'll ruin him, just like you ruined us. That night, I told Ethan. We were sitting in my living room, the tension thick as I recounted Ryan's words. Ethan's expression grew darker with every sentence, his hands curling into fists. He has no right, Ethan said, his voice sharp with anger. No damn right to say that to you. He's not wrong, I whispered before I could stop myself. Ethan's head snapped toward me. Don't do that. Don't let him convince you that you're broken or toxic or whatever bullshit he feeds people. You're not. My throat burned. But if he finds out, then we deal with it. Ethan cut in fierce. Together. The word together echoed in my chest, louder than my fear. And for the first time, I believed it might be possible. But possibility doesn't erase reality. Because 2 nights later, Ryan found us. We hadn't been careful enough. A late-night balcony conversation had turned into a kiss, slow, unhurried, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. We didn't notice the shadow across the courtyard, the figure standing in the darkness watching. It wasn't until the sharp knock on my door the next morning that I realized the storm had broken. I opened it to Ryan, his expression twisted with fury. You've got to be kidding me, he spat. My brother? My goddamn brother. The world spun, my stomach plummeting. Ryan, save it, he snapped. His voice was low, venomous. I should have known. You always find a way to crawl into places you don't belong. But Ethan? You? He turned, his voice rising. Ryan's return was like a crack of thunder on a clear day. Unexpected, unwelcome, and loud enough to shake everything we had built in secret. For days after his sudden appearance, silence hung over the building like a storm that refused to break. I tried to stay invisible, slipping past in the mornings, coming home late at night. But there's only so much running you can do when the ghost you've been trying to forget lives across the hall, and the man you're falling for is his brother. The tension finally broke one Sunday evening. Ryan was leaning against the railing outside, a beer in his hand, when I stepped out to toss my trash. He looked me up and down, his grin sharp. "Funny thing," he said. "I was talking to Ethan earlier. You two seem close." My throat tightened. "Don't start." "Oh, I'm not starting anything," he said lightly, but his eyes gleamed with malice. "I just think it's interesting. You couldn't handle me, but suddenly you're cozying up to my brother." The words cut deep, but before I could respond, Ethan appeared at the doorway behind me. His voice was calm but firm. "Enough, Ryan." Ryan laughed, low and bitter. "Oh, come on. You can't be serious. Him? After everything." I froze, shame burning through me, but Ethan didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his presence steady, unwavering. "Yes, him. Exactly him." Ryan blinked, stunned into silence for the first time in his life. "You're joking." "I'm not." Ethan's voice didn't waver. "I care about him, more than I ever cared about anything you threw away." The world stopped spinning. For the first time, Ethan said it out loud. Not just to me in whispered moments, not in the safety of shadows, but here, exposed, in front of the one person who could tear us apart. Ryan scoffed, shaking his head. "This is insane. Do you know what people will say? What Mom and Dad will think?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "I don't care." And then his hand found mine, fingers threading through with quiet certainty. "Because for once in my life, I'm not living for anyone else's approval." My chest ached, my throat thick with unspoken words. I looked at him, at the conviction burning in his eyes, and for the first time I believed we might actually survive this. Ryan sneered, muttered something under his breath, and stormed off, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the stairwell. And just like that, it was only us again. But surviving one confrontation didn't mean the road ahead was easy. Word spread fast. Neighbors whispering in hallways, co-workers casting curious glances. My phone buzzed with messages from people I hadn't heard from in months, each one coded in thinly veiled judgment. And then came the call from Ethan's parents, a storm of disappointment and disbelief. I told him I could handle it, that I didn't mind being the target of their disapproval. But the truth was, every harsh word cut me open. Every whisper reminded me of the fear I'd carried all my life, that love like mine wasn't meant to last. One night I broke. I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights, the noise of traffic below barely reaching me. My chest was tight, tears stinging my eyes. Ethan found me there, silent in the doorway. "Talk to me," he said softly. I shook my head, unable to meet his gaze. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's too much. Too complicated. He knelt in front of me, his hand gentle as he tilted my chin up. "Look at me. Do you really believe that?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." His voice was firm, steady. "You know it every time I hold you. Every time you laugh with me. Every time you wake up in my arms. You know this is real. Don't let their voices drown out what you already feel." Something in me cracked wide open then. The fear, the shame, the doubt. It all came pouring out. And Ethan caught it, held it, refused to let me drown in it. That night, in his arms, I realized something simple but terrifying. Love isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing each other despite the fear. The real test came weeks later. Ethan's parents invited us to dinner. Not separately, together. I almost said no. Almost told him I couldn't face the judgment written in their eyes. But Ethan's hand squeezed mine, and I heard myself say yes. The night was brutal. His mother's disappointment was sharp, his father's silence heavier than stone. Ryan sat at the far end of the table, smirking into his glass, throwing casual barbs meant to wound. But through it all, Ethan never let go of me. Every time I faltered, his hand was there, Every time I doubted, his voice was steady. And when the silence stretched too long, when the weight of disapproval threatened to crush us, Ethan finally spoke. I love him. 3 words. Simple, certain, unshakable. The room stilled. His parents exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. Ryan scoffed again, but it didn't matter, because in that moment, Ethan wasn't asking for permission. He was claiming me, claiming us without apology. And that was enough. Months passed. The whispers didn't stop. The world didn't suddenly accept us with open arms. But slowly, life carved out its rhythm again. Mornings with coffee on the balcony. Evenings tangled on the couch. A movie forgotten on the screen. Late-night talks about dreams and fears, about the life we wanted to build. Not someday, but now. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer defined us. The fear didn't vanish, but it no longer ruled us. Because love, our love, was louder than all of it. The last time I stepped into that elevator, months after the night it broke down, I wasn't alone. Ethan stood beside me, his arm brushing mine. The doors closed, and instead of panic, I felt calm. Instead of fear, I felt warmth. He glanced at me, a small smile tugging at his lips. Remember the first time we were stuck in here? I laughed, shaking my head. How could I forget? I thought I was going to die. His smile softened. And instead, you found me. The elevator hummed quietly, carrying us upward, the city's heartbeat faint beneath our feet. I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder. No, I didn't find you. You found me. And maybe that's what love really is. Not the absence of fear, not the perfection of timing, but the simple, steady choice to hold on. The doors slid open, the hallway bathed in warm light. Ethan reached for my hand, his fingers threading through mine, and together, we stepped forward. Not into certainty, not into approval, but into something real. Something ours. Something worth everything. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.